Hey, this is Matt O'Leary, and this is Albums at a Glance for February 2017. In these videos, I give my thoughts on a number of new released albums that came out from the past month, generally better known and better recognized stuff, at least within the alternative music conversation and world. Not all my favorite music from the year is actually in this video. I have another video called Unknowns and Obscurities, which I try to do every month. Haven't done one yet in 2017, but I got a ton of music I'm just digging into, and I'm just going to burst it all forth at once. Tons of recommendations, so stay tuned for that as well. Before we actually get into the February music, I have to mention a couple albums I didn't get to in the January video. The first one is Ariel Pink's collaboration with Weyes Blood, and it's called Myths 002. It's actually an EP, just 4 songs. Honestly, I feel like this is a pretty inconsequential and okay to miss project. It contains both artists' brilliance in some ways, but doesn't add up to more than just the sum of its parts. I wish there was a little bit more of a folk sound on this thing. I really think the other songs besides Tears on Fire are a little bit flat dynamically, which is a problem I had with Weyes Blood's last album as well. That being said, I think this is worth checking out if you're into either artist. It's got the freaky pop twists and turns of Ariel Pink or that lush choral tone of Natalie Merring. So beautiful, her voice. And definitely a medieval flavor to some of the tracks here as well. Another album that came out in January, it's from Max Richter, a really interesting project here. It's 3 Worlds, music from Woolf works. German-born British composer Max Richter does film, he does opera, he does ballet, he does stuff for the stage. I mean, you name the art, this guy's probably made beautiful music to accompany it. He kind of just crosses that stuffy composer boundary and just challenges the modern notion of music with every single minimalistic experimental piece. This album's for a ballet that's based on the works of English writer Virginia Woolf. I'm sure that listening to this in the context of one of her novels or an essay or the ballet itself would just add these emotional layers to what's already pretty memorable and haunting music. There's an undercurrent of tragedy on this album as pulsating electronics give way to towering string melodies. I'm looking for some other modern classical recommendations, so if you have contemporary composers you listen to, you like, just shout them out. Bringing the bass guitar to front and center stage, it's Thundercat, who released his 4th album, Drunk, back in February. Lots of hype about this thing. It's his 3rd full-length album on Brainfeeder Records. I prefer the more succinct and focused first album, Golden Age of the Apocalypse, and while I loved a lot of the songs on his 2nd album, it was a pretty confused record, I thought, in comparison. But with this one, it becomes pretty obvious his goal is not to create these carefully curated albums. This one's a total mess, an entertaining but sloppy and drunk mess. And if you ever listen to an interview with this guy, you realize this is probably a more accurate portrayal of his actual personality. I mean, the guy is a total goof. The lyrics here are stupid. They are so incredibly shallow. I think that's kind of the point, but it's just not for me. Songs like Drink That and Tokyo and Black fit in so snugly with the trends in 2017. Opting for hedonism, escapism, and irony over any sense of authentic sentimentality or truth-seeking. But I still love the production on this thing and just the overall jazz technicality and musicianship. Thundercat is an extremely unique artist, and Drunk definitely has its moments. I love the mock speed attack on the 3rd track, or the frantic shuffle and obscure arpeggios of Where I'm Going. And with this kind of one-dimensional falsetto, I think having these guest vocalists keeps things fresh, keeps things interesting, like on the great 1-2 punch or Show You the Way and Walk On By. I hope that Thundercat moves away from just being a cultural cynic and into some more meaningful territory on his next project, but I don't really see that happening. There is so much apathy and cynicism in our society right now, and I kind of see Thundercat just continuing to cater to that, especially since it seems to be paying off for him popularity-wise. Next, it's HOMESHAKE with the album Fresh Air. This is some sleazy R&B that gets sickening in about 10 seconds. And Peter Seger's singing is just about as melodically inept as Drake on Hotline Bling. Look, this is some poorly performed, just chintzy garbage. But again, I think that's kind of the point. So if you're really into this slacker brand, then in some universe I could see this being valuable to you. I'm gonna avoid it, so thanks. Next up's my first exposure to the English band Dutch Uncles with their 5th album, Big Balloon. I'm really not that knowledgeable about 80s music as a whole. Yeah, I like the Talking Heads, I like the Smiths, but I'm trying to become more familiar with that decade in general. So it's perfect that Dutch Uncles incorporate that new wave sound into these songs. The first chorus on the first song is a great example of that. But it's blended with these mathy, proggy rhythms. It's definitely more my style. It reminds me of a band like Battles. I'm really excited about this band, so if you know their other stuff and you have an album that's your favorite that you think I should jump into, let me know. Next up is New Animal Collective with the Painters EP. I reviewed Painting With last year. I remember being super jacked about that album. Ended up being very disappointing. I loved Floridada. I loved Hocus Pocus a lot. Golden Gal was another highlight, of course, one of the singles, but in the end it just became too much. It was like going to Cold Stone and you know all you can eat is the like it, but you end up just getting the love it, and then it's just like, oh, jeez. And like the second half of that dairy monstrosity, I ended up just getting super sick of those alternating vocals and the overall kookiness of Painting With. This EP though, definitely a similar sound suggested by the name. I'm guessing they were recorded in the same sessions, but in a much more reasonable serving size. 4 songs, then you're done. I like it a lot better this way. Next up is the Australian band Pivot, spelled PVT, with their 5th album, New Spirit. Like Dutch Uncles, this is a band I'm not familiar with, but this is a fascinating album, oscillating between tried and true pop and heady electronica. I feel like this one demands a more careful inspection with its sonic detail and its lyrical depth, and I'm just kind of scratching the surface. But I love the slow growing energy and vocal effect on Morning Mist, Rock Island Bend, and the disorienting trance of the very Twin Peaksy Murder Mall. Next on the list, it's Jesca Hoop with Memories Are Now. From the moment that voice comes in with its caustic self-assurance and just tumbling over itself into the symphony of diverse timbres, you just know you're in for something special. It's one instrument, the voice, but man, it's so versatile. If you like Joanna Newsom, if you like Fiona Apple, and this one's a must listen. It takes those traditional folk and country sounds and puts them into a contemporary context. I guess it's a singer-songwriter record technically, but that does it no justice. This thing is bursting with ideas and refined musicianship. Can't recommend it enough. Ooh, next up's one of my favorites. It's Steven Wilson. But actually just Blackfield. It's always been obvious to me which parts of Blackfield's music Wilson's written and played a bigger role in than its collaborator Aviv Geffen. To be honest, I'm a huge Steven Wilson fan, but I think Aviv's presence has always sort of just tarnished Blackfield's music a little bit for me. This one's kind of similar. With his solo projects though, Wilson just refuses to plateau. This guy just seems to get better and better with age. But Blackfield 5 is an album that seems old and tired. Sure, there are a couple compositional highlights for me, like the ornate ballad that is October, the sickeningly beautiful chord structure on the instrumental track Saltwater. But these are just drops in the ocean of mild and at times cringy mediocrity. Catch the ocean metaphor? Yeah, hint Blackfield, it's boring. Tim Bowness is Lost in the Ghostlight. This is another gentle progressive rock album, just didn't stand apart from me in any single way. Tim Bowness is half of the band No Man, another one of Steven Wilson's projects. Another English act, this time alt-rock band Elbow with their 7th album, Little Fictions. I'm a big fan of Guy Garvey's heart-on-the-sleeve lyrical approach and crystal clear vocal belting. This is a band that so easily could have gone just totally commercial stadium rock at this point. They've been on the brink of an album like Coldplay's recent stinker for a long time. And I admire that. I admire that ability to maintain artistic integrity, when they totally have the commercial viability to just sell out. And Little Fictions is a pretty mellow but solid album. From the entrancing cowbell build on the title track to the majestic refrain on Trust the Sun. Oh man, those 2 songs are definite highlights. Go check them out. All right, 3 more albums left. We got Swedish singer-songwriter Jens Lekmann with another odd assemblage of awkward pop songs on Life Will See You Now. Jens' music is sort of unapologetically mediocre, but I feel like he owns that in a really quirky way. Like Hotwire the Ferris Wheel, or the song Some Dandruff on Your Shoulder from I Know What Love Isn't, the last album. These kind of songs are only funny because of how unlikely and undeserving those topics are for a song. I mean, these are just cheeky observations, and that's about it. And his voice is a little bit like Kermit the Frog if he got about 3 years of voice lessons. But I kind of like the silly Tropicalia, hoping he can mix that with some of the orchestral lushness of his second album. Instrumental rock band Grails came out with another one. It's called Chalice Hymnal. Love that name, love this cover art. Like the soundtrack to a film noir, this has got sort of a sinister underbelly. The ghostly R&B of Empty Chamber, and the insistent bassy synth chatter on Pelham. Finally, we got a band called Meatbodies. This is the bassist of Ty Segal's band Fuzz. His name is Chad Ubovich, and it's another sort of psych garage thing. This new album, Alice, is a fairly run-of-the-mill heavy metal psych album, reminding me of Wolf Mother quite a bit. The repetitive pentatonic riffs just kind of wear on my ears after a while, but there were a handful of moments that kind of re-sparked my interest periodically. For any big fans of Fuzz or the OCs, Meatbodies is another project to be aware of. That's it for February. Thank you for watching.